Hello everyone and welcome to my video. This is my take on how to build a PC. I enjoy building PCs, so I thought why not record myself putting together one. I'm by no means an expert on this, so if you spot any mistakes I've made, please let me know. With that said, let's go over the parts list. Today I've got an Intel Core i5-6500 processor locked at 3.2 GHz. It was released late 2015 and uses Intel's 1151 socket. It usually comes with a stock cooler, but mine did not, so I picked up a CryoRig M9i from Newegg. For the motherboard, I have an ASRock H270M ITX AC. It's an ITX board. It has built-in Wi-Fi and an M.2 slot at the bottom. Since my motherboard only has 2 DIMM slots, I went with a single stick of 8GB DDR4 2400 memory. That way I have room to add another stick if I end up needing more RAM. For storage, I have a 250GB Samsung 850 EVO SSD for my OS, and a 2TB mechanical hard drive for everything else. And for the graphics card, since this is a gaming PC, I'll be adding a Radeon RX 488GB from XFX. If you're not planning on gaming, you don't need to add one of these, since all Intel chips have onboard graphics. But since you're here, I'm going to assume that the PC you're going to be building is for gaming. I know it's been hard to find a good deal on mid-range cards lately. However, at the time of filming, the GTX 1063GB cards have been coming back down to pre-mining prices. If you're on a smaller budget though, the GTX 1050 Ti can be had for less. To power all of these is my CX450M by Corsair. It's an 80 plus bronze unit that has 37.4 amps on the 12V rail. 450 watts should be enough to power everything, since I'm not really overclocking anyways. Housing everything is a Thermaltake Core V1. Now, it's a mini ITX cube case, and since I went with a semi-modular power supply, it'll hopefully help with the cable management. Now let's clear off the table so we can get started. Now for the list of tools that you're going to need. That's it. That's all you need to assemble a PC. Now I like to prep everything outside of the case. So first step, find the gold triangle on the corner of the CPU and match it with the triangle on the socket cover, which is almost always down here so far. So what you do is you push down on this so you can slide it over. Lift up the cover. Don't take the black part off until you're done. Take the CPU out. Don't touch the top. Don't touch the gold pads at the bottom. And simply just line it up and drop it in. After that, lower down the arm, make sure it catches there, and then push down until it pops off. Save this in case your board needs an RMA. A lot of the times board manufacturers will not take it without this cover. Now next up for me is the CPU cooler. So since I have an aftermarket one, I'm going to be showing how to install that. The CryoRig M9i, so it only comes with the Intel mounting hardware. So you're gonna need this bracket, you're gonna need these 4 screws, these nuts, these 2 brackets, the heatsink itself, and the fan. So to set up, Now that it's installed, CryoRig actually includes a tube of their thermal paste. So that's next. Add enough to the top so it'll spread when pressure is applied. Should be good. Now for this, I'm actually orienting the cooler to sit like this for me. You could do it this way, but that may interfere with the DIMM slots. So and then screw it down evenly. Now flip the cooler around because I had it backwards, but now it's time for RAM installation. Now for DDR4, you gotta line up this notch with the corresponding notch on your board. It really only goes in one way. Don't try to force it if you're doing it the other way, so it might damage the DIMM slot or the RAM stick itself. So just line it up like so. And push until you hear a click. Now that the motherboard is prepped, it's time for the case. Now it's time to work in the case. I went ahead and undid all of the side panels on mine. Since mine's a cube case, all of the panels actually come off. I'm going to be starting with the power supply, since once I get that in, I don't have to mess with it for a little bit. And my case has a bottom dust filter, so I'm going to install mine fan side down. Depending on your case, it might be a little different. Now, the case manufacturers actually provide PSU screws for you on top of the power supply manufacturers. So it's gonna be these screws right here, or whichever one that came with your power supply. Okay, so now that the power supply is on, next up for me is going to be installing the motherboard inside the case. Don't worry about the loose cables, we'll do that later. Now, first install your I/O shield. Every motherboard comes with one. And make sure it's aligned properly to the back ports of your motherboard. Just line it up. Now it's time for the motherboard. Now my case already has pre-installed standoffs. Yours might not. Now just gently slide that in, making sure all the ports in the back right here line up and all the tabs go through. Now it's time to screw in the motherboard. Find the appropriate screws for your case. Mine so happens to be the coarse thread. Now there's 4 points for mini ITX. There's these two. There's one up here, and there's one down here. We've made it this far. Now it's time for hard drives. This case actually comes with 2 hard drive cages right here. Alright, so for mounting hard drives and SSDs, gonna need these screws for the hard drives, and then these fine thread ones for the SSDs. Okay, so now that we have the motherboard mounted, let's mount this fan. On the fan, it will have arrows indicating the direction of airflow and fan spin. So air is going to be going that way, and the blades are going to be spinning this way. Don't forget to plug in the fan to the CPU fan header. It's going to be different for each board, but mine just so happens to be this one right here. On top of that, I'm going to go ahead and plug in this front fan as well. While we're here, let's start plugging stuff in. Okay, so now I gotta let loose. I'll let loose the cables that I had here. Okay, so as far as cables, we're gonna need the 24 pin, the 8 pin, one for SATA, and this other cable for the graphics card or PCIe power. So first, let's grab this 8 pin power header right here. I'm gonna route it this way. Make sure it clicks. And then the 24 pin, make sure it clicks. Okay, so now CPU power is installed, motherboard power is installed. Now let's do the blue header, which is USB 3 to the USB 19 pin header right here, next to the 24 pin motherboard power. These connectors right here are your reset power and LED lights. You might have to consult your motherboard manual to figure out which ones go where. Alright, so now that the front panel connectors are on, don't forget the HD audio. That connector goes for my board up here. You grab 2 SATA cables. This is for the hard drive and the SSD. Alright, now it's time to plug everything in. Grab SATA power, like that. And for this graphics card, okay, now we have a whole mess of cables. It's time to install the graphics card. Gotta take out these 2. There we go. Let's go ahead and take the front cover off. Just gotta plug it in. Okay, so after a little bit of time and creativity, I was able to manage all of the cables to where it's not so everywhere. Could not find a good place for this. I tried underneath the graphics card, but it was pushing on a capacitor down there, so I decided not to do that. Yeah. It's enough clearance for the fan. And there it is. Well, the day has turned into night. I'm finally finished recording. It's probably because I decided to record this part of the video after trying to edit. But there it is. Thanks for watching.